This here today is a rapid fire podcast. 6 topics, 5 minutes each. Zip through. Got a lot to get to today. Before we do any of that, though, John, just a reminder about our PGA Golf DraftKings game, which you got to get in.
Yep, I've tweeted out the link. You've tweeted out the link. It's in our bios for our Instagram. Get involved in the game. You're in it. I'm in it. Come on, guys. Download the app. Promo code HAM. Y'all know the deal. Get in our game.
And if you're watching on YouTube, it's in the description below. If you are listening to the podcast, it's in the podcast description, wherever you get your podcast from. So you should be able to find the link. Anywhere. Rapid fire podcast. The way this works. Oh, by the way, and we made another video about making a lineup if you've never played PGA DraftKings, which you might not have played PGA DraftKings.
I know a bunch of people, I'm sure listening, have got involved, it feels like, over the last couple of years with our football ones, which is pretty basic. A lot of people play fantasy football, right? Golf's a little different. It's just you can pick any player just based on how much they cost.
I've got to
keep you locked in. There's not much going on these next couple of weeks, guys. You need something to just kind of keep an eye on over the weekend.
This is actually my first PGA DraftKings. Although for several years with my buddy Lee Moon, just for majors, we would just each pick 5 and put I think it has dinners or cash, none of which has ever been paid out over the course of several years. But
I had a low moment. I've gambled a lot on golf. I don't think I've ever played fantasy golf, even though people have always told me it's actually really fun. I know daily fantasy golf is the best because you never get stuck with a player.
Yeah.
I did have some money riding on the Players Championship. Remember, that was right when Corona hit. They played, I think, Thursday, and remember by Friday morning, they're like, yeah, we're done. Then I had like $200 left over, and I played virtual poker, and it's all gone. So we'll just try to move on.
Yeah.
This is better.
This is better. All right, John. Our topics on YouTube in the middle of the screen. Podcast is available in the YouTube description. 5 minutes on the clock. And we begin with this. The ESPN NFL Nation Draft. For those of you that haven't seen it, ESPN NFL Nation reporters, they made every player available in the NFL to a draft. And here is the list. Mahomes, Wilson, Lamar Jackson, top 3. Watson, Aaron Donald went 5. Joey Bosa went ahead of Nick. Joe Burrow went 13 ahead of Brady. Drew Lock went 15. Matt Ryan, Kyler Murray, Teddy Bridgewater, Jimmy Garoppolo at 19. George Kittle went. Tua went ahead of George Kittle. So a lot there. What jumped out to you?
Teddy Bridgewater going in the first round definitely jumped out to me. I like Aaron Donald as much as anyone likes Aaron Donald. Great player. Hell, I like Joey Bosa as well. Joey Bosa was a star on a team that ended up drafting number 6 overall. If you don't have a quarterback, how long have we learned this? These guys all cover the fucking league. Aaron Donald is not the most important player on his own team, despite being the best player on his own team. Jared Goff, who everyone kind of shits on at this point in time, I think needs to take a step back, take a deep breath, has some flaws, still a pretty good player.
Yeah.
They went 9-7 with him. He was slicing and dicing the Niners in that Saturday night game. He's more important than Aaron Donald. Does everyone get that? Like, however you want to do the first couple picks, no issue, right? Mahomes, no-brainer. Russell Wilson, no-brainer. Lamar, Deshaun, whoever your cup of tea is. Carson Wentz got to go next. Matt Ryan has to go in the top 10. Like, these guys matter more, guy. Haven't we been talking about this ad nauseum? It feels like definitely for the past decade how important these guys are.
Teddy Bridgewater could not go ahead of Jimmy Garoppolo.
Teddy Bridgewater wouldn't, even if we were doing like normal GMs, he wouldn't go in the first round. He would not.
No.
Where did all of a sudden Teddy Bridgewater become a top 15 player in the league?
I don't know. He's been available twice now, and he's ended up as a backup and on a bad team. And maybe he'll – again, it's not about whether he can be good or not. That's not the point. The point is he wouldn't be a first-round pick. Even in a league – now, maybe if everybody took a quarterback, but even then.
Okay, I'll give you one. Would any GM in the league take Teddy Bridgewater over Sam Darnold of what Sam Darnold could become? Not one.
No, I don't think so. No. I
don't think so either.
Because he's been a free agent. People could sign him. Sam Darnold was a top pick.
I'll give you another one.
Baker going ahead of Sam Darnold.
Player. Are we watching football, guys? Would anyone take? I don't like this player that much, but I would rather have Kirk Cousins than Teddy Bridgewater. I at least know what I'm getting with Kirk Cousins, right?
Yeah.
Don't love Kirk Cousins, but he's functional.
How about this? Should Joey Bosa go ahead of Nick Bosa? He might be the better brother, but he's also the older brother. Like Nick just came off his rookie year.
I wouldn't argue that one that much. That could easily be a no-brainer in a year. Like Nick is the better player than Joey. Joey's still damn good.
I'm just saying Joey might even be more. Even if Joey's a little better, Nick just being younger. If they're kind of close, you could make that argument for Jimmy though. Garoppolo, he's an older quarterback. That's why like they had Kyler Murray go at 17 and Jimmy went at 19.
Well, if Khalil Mack was coming off the season 2 years ago instead of this last one, wouldn't Khalil have been a lock, like top 8 player? Right? His star
Baker
fell.
he went 24th. Now, Baker, I shouldn't bring up Baker because to your point, quarterbacks. How about Ronnie Stanley going at 6?
What are we talking about, people? Ronnie Stanley? I like Ronnie Stanley. Good player, but Ronnie Stanley? I sometimes these guys the pushback, are we sure we're all watching the same game?
Well, I think some people like to try and be a little, no, I'm going to get more value and then I'll take another quarter. But like Drew Lock at 15.
That to me is a little outrageous. Under no circumstances could you put Drew Lock's top 15 player in this league right now. Now, if you were doing things like based on age, I understand if you went like, I'm not touching a 43-year-old quarterback or a 40, Tom Brady, Drew Brees.
Sure.
What you could have an argument there. I'll take a younger player. Drew Lock, you'd say, would be pretty bullish, but it'd also be like buying a $1 stock, which in 2 years could be like an $80 stock, right? There's a chance by the end of this season, the Broncos are good. Drew Lock's kind of the talk of the town. Right?
Here's one for you. Offensive skill guys. Quarterbacks out. Okay? Who would you take first among this group? McCaffrey, Michael Thomas, DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Evans, Tyreek Hill, George Kittle. In this draft, it went McCaffrey, Thomas, Hopkins, Evans, Hill, Kittle. Kittle went 6th among that group.
Despite the running back value being a major question mark, and we'll get to it later, I feel like McCaffrey, I'd be arguing, like, could we take him as the first? I'd put Kittle up there really high, too.
Yeah. I'd put Kittle
I'd probably go McCaffrey or Kittle.
Yeah. I'd put Kittle ahead. He'd have to be ahead of Hopkins or Evans for me. And Hill, for that matter.
To me, Evans would be my top guy out of that group.
Evans would be
just the size, you might the speed, you put Evans the physicality. No, out of the wide receivers. I might take Evans, if I could draft the right quarterback, even over DeAndre. Just I like the physical attributes. Scouting me.
All right, we've exhausted that. So now let's get to running backs. 5 minutes on the clock for Dalvin Cook, John, who has been really good. In fact, he's coming off the best year of his career, especially when you consider his first year was, for those of you who had him in. See, actually, Dalvin Cook is a phenomenal example of why you don't play traditional fantasy football. Because he went pretty high his rookie year, and for a good reason, and then got hurt and played 4 games. He's coming off a good year. He's not participating in any team activities till he gets a new contract, John. So the Zoom box does not have – it's just no Dalvin Cook in the Zoom box right now for the Vikings.
Listen, Dalvin Cook last year in 2019, the stats, he had his career year. He was an awesome player. I mean, he was a top 3 or 4 running back in the league. He was arguably the best offensive player on a team that had a really good offense, right? And on a team that ended up upsetting the Saints in the first round of the playoffs. Like, the Vikings, at the end of the day, had a really good season. And you could argue he was their best player, maybe Danielle Hunter. But, geez, guy, what do you do? Like, would you not want to draft a running back in the first 2 days just because the likelihood of them hitting would be higher, and then you have to pay him sooner, especially if you draft a guy in the 2nd or 3rd round? Dalvin Cook's going into what, his 4th season? So he had a rookie year. He got hurt his 2nd year, had his breakout year his 3rd year, and he's like, pay me.
Right.
Well, it's like Dalvin, let's say I'm Rick Spielman, and I like the character, love the player. I go, well, how can I pay you huge money? You just tore your ACL 18 months ago. We saw that happen. And his counter would be like, well, I came back and he was even better. True. But it happened to Gurley once upon a time, and then he started getting tendonitis. How could you pay this player, guy, even if you like him? I don't know. I don't know how you do it.
The problem with drafting, you could say, oh, you got a great player, and then you just move on from him and find another running back. But the problem is, I don't want my first round pick to be 4 years and done on my team, 5 years and done on my team. I want my first round pick back. I want my first round pick to become one of the highest players in the league because he earned it. Right?
That would be the push, but like a McCaffrey who went 8th, they extended after year 3. So that Fournette,
he's a little different, right?
He is, but my point is, like, let's say Dalvin Cook was a second-round pick. This is the complication when you draft a guy. Would you rather take maybe the argument is, if you're going to take a running back, just take him in the first round so you have him under contract for the 5 years instead of when you get him in the 2nd through the 6th, right, like a Dak Prescott or whatever, they start wanting a new contract after 3 years because they really only have the 1 year left.
Yeah, so you're saying take him in the first round. Do the Seahawks. Just take a running back at the end of the first round.
Or how about this? Never take a running back before the 3rd day and undrafted free agents. Just do it that way. Maybe that would be my team philosophy.
The problem is you're sitting there at, like, 34 going, this guy can help us. We're 34. Really, it's the end of the first round where you're a good football team and you see a 1,000-yard rusher sitting right there.
Yeah, and he goes, he's by far the best player on our board. I do understand where it gets complicated, but it consistently happens, guy, with these running backs when they're ready to get paid. They usually draw a line in the sand because the analytic community now has really put it in the forefront of all of our minds. Like, yeah, they just die. They just fall off a cliff. So you're like, well, fuck, if I don't get paid now, my career's just going to be over. And it's like, remember Zeke Elliott, like years 1 through 5?
It's not like early Moneyball where the A's were scooping up guys with high walk rates and no one really even was aware of what was going on, right?
Well, because let's say
everybody knows that nobody wants to pay a running back.
Let's say the Minnesota Vikings just let him play this season out. I think I saw his number was like $2 million, and let him just hit free agency. We're not even going to tag you. We're just going to let you walk. Well, like, who's paying him huge money in the free agent market, right? Every team's going to be like, can we get him for cheap? Like, that's it. You don't think about that. Like, if Mike Evans hit the free agent market, teams would be like, what does it cost? Or George Kittle, like, we'll pay whatever.
Right.
With Dalvin Cook, the Rosemans, the Schneiders, the Veaches would be like, can we get him for $4 million a year? They look at it like a baseball GM when it comes to these running backs.
Because
look at Melvin Gordon.
I mean,
he held out, and Elway ended up getting him, I think, for like $15 million guaranteed total.
Well, think about it, because the running back tag is not that. It's it's $12 million basically.
Would you just play this out and tag him? But the problem is if he's actually using his leverage by not showing up. He's playing it smartly, right? He's doing what we've been saying Kittle has to think about doing if he really wants to get paid. This is what you do.
But is he going to get what would the number, like we've talked a lot about Kittle's contract here before we move on. What would the number for Dalvin Cook be?
Before we jumped on earlier this morning, I was just kind of roaming around the internet, and I saw a headline on Roto World. Like, he would gladly accept $13 million a year. So he's not going like, give me Zeke money or McCaffrey money. Just give me like $35 million guaranteed. Just get me on Easy Street and change my life. I want to get paid, but I'm not looking for historic money, but I do want to get paid. So I do understand his side, right?
I totally understand his side. Again, my question is, would he sign for, what'd you just say,
$28 million guaranteed, like 3-year extension?
Zeke's
would you do that if you're the
Vikings?
Vikings?
50.
Yeah, would you do a deal if you're him for like 27, like the Le'Veon Bell deal? So it's basically equivalent of a 2-year extension after
the Vikings,
this year.
You're like, I'll pay him $2 million this year. I'll tag him for $12 million, or I'll have to 5th-year option
we'll
him.
year by year.
Then I'll tag him, and right. This is
That'll
4th
add
year,
up
so
to
you pay him
27.
$2 million, you 5th-year option him, you tag him if you have to, $12 million, and then you move on with your life 3 years from now, 4 years from now.
It makes little to no, despite him being hell guy, he might be their best player right now on the team. It makes no sense for them to extend him to a number I'd say above like $25 million guaranteed, which is sad. I mean, don't play running back, kids, unless you're McCaffrey.
The Chicago Bears, John, have canceled virtual OTAs, which honestly doesn't. I'm surprised it took this long for somebody to say I've had enough of Zoom meetings. But Matt Nagy said, I've talked to the team, informed them we're going to end our off-season program a week and a half early. This is not class was supposed to end at 3 and we're letting everybody out at 2. This is a week and a half early. We've had a phenomenal, ready for this? 9 weeks of virtual learning. 9 weeks of sitting on Zoom. 9 weeks of not getting out and running around together, just the classroom. And they've been really, really solid weeks. We're moving on.
You would have had those 9 weeks, though, if Corona hadn't been going on, right? It actually would have been long. You know, your time, the 2 hours you spent on Zoom.
The 9 weeks I'm just emphasizing is sitting on Zoom.
One thing I saw a lot of coaches do, like I saw Schefter had Doc Rivers on his podcast, and Doc was saying he did a Zoom for Nagy. Like he came on and talked to the team the day Drew Brees talked.
A lot of college teams have done this.
Yeah, you just have, like, hey, Shaq, you want to come talk to the team? Hey, some member of SEAL Team 6. Like, teams do that naturally. It's probably a little easier right now because everyone's kind of, at least the last month, you could probably have access to, especially other coaches, like, hey, Pat Riley, could you Zoom into my team for a minute?
I bet their speaking fees are a little lower. You don't have to pay for travel. Don't have to pay for the hotel.
No, some of these guys might just do it out of the goodness of their heart. Like, I would imagine the Bears did not have to pay Doc Rivers to give their team a pep talk. But you've been saying from the jump, just everything that's going on Twitter, there is something to be said. I mean, as there always will be about being in person with people. The challenge, I would imagine, for like the quote-unquote team meeting, that means you're 15 coaches, you're 90 players. Think how many little boxes on when the team is up. It's like, could you be like, could I doze off and no one's really paying attention? It would be very difficult to really keep everyone locked in on a team meeting. Maybe that's why you break off early. I'm just fascinated to know, are we going to see that big of a difference come the fall if training camp's normal, that the offseason didn't happen? And will that impact future offseasons of, you know, the lifting and stuff is truly important. I think every player you hear talking, everything they've been able to do, they've tried to maximize their consistent lifting programs. But like the practices for, I was watching David Bakhtiari. He was like an 8-year vet who's, you know, Colorado, former first-round pick, and just one of their better players on the Packers. He's like, you know, I've kind of gotten to a groove. I feel pretty good. Like, is he going to be that affected?
Right?
Yeah. Like, is Richard Sherman that affected? If Joe Staley would have came back? Or, you know, it's going to impact younger players that are going to be swimming. I just wonder with any guy after, like, probably year one that you've already been in a system and you've played, if it will have any impact on you.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know the answer.
I do think
college is going to have a huge impact because of strength and eating and access to food and stuff like that.
They've been in the rotations younger. I was going to say, I think the food, first of all, the efficiency of just going from the meeting, we all walk together out to the practice field. We practice, you come, you do the ice bath. We know what everybody did. You get your smoothie. Just the efficiency, the control, all that stuff. Being able to control everybody's workout environment, being able to push them, being able to know what they weighed 3 weeks ago, what they weigh today. And I think the nutrition aspect is so hard. Like anybody who's ever read, just like, oh, I'm gonna do some meal prepping this week. Then you realize you can maybe do it for a week, get all your little Tupperwares in the fridge and just grab it on your way to work. It's hard to maintain that. I think the nutrition is where these teams really are able to separate because you can get them eating at such a high level they don't have to do anything. This is just, and they probably realize it because one thing Nagy said was, we're getting rid of the Zoom. This is now just going to be them. All they got to do is go work on their bodies. That's all they got to do. And I would imagine it's just you got everybody logging on from wherever they are. You get done. You don't know who takes a nap and who just puts on their cleats and runs out to the park afterwards. I just think it's just so much more inefficient.
Yeah, Coach, I'm headed out to the park right now.
Why does my son see you on God of War on Twitch right now? So. Yeah, man.
As you head to the movie room,
I think there's going to be a physical. Maybe from a preparation standpoint, in terms of just understanding all the classroom stuff, they'll be the same. I think from a physical standpoint, I think just everyone's going to be behind where they normally would be.
I think it's the one sport of the three major sports. In baseball, it's just pliability, and lifting to me has become less what it peaked with the steroid era and what the body types are now. Basketball is clearly the weight room has been, instituted and becoming a part of the sport. But I'd say most guys use it to maintain strength. They maintain iron sharpens iron by playing hoops. Football is the one where a large percentage of the year, right, the 12 months leading those 9 months leading up to your season are spent lifting hefty weights, heavy weights, and like really pushing yourself physically at the lines. I'd say linebackers. I would say the speed element for wide receivers and corners, like the way they speed train, the seriousness of it. It's very unique to football, where I think like basketball, they might be rusty shooting, but I bet their body types are going to look the same. Where I bet a lineman will be like, God, I'm 15 pounds lighter. I don't feel right. Or a wide receiver goes, God, I don't feel quite as quick as I'm used to training. Because think of the element of, like you said, the nutrition to me is huge. And that, I think, it's even bigger in college because these guys do have money and they will have access to it. Like there's never been an easier way to have access to stuff now when you have the money at their level. But I do think pushing yourself on a daily basis with your teammates, it's hard to do it by yourself, right?
Yeah.
Like that extra push, or even if you have one, guy helping you lift, it's different when you have your whole line there, right? Or and the head coach is walking by, and
the position coach is watching.
There's an energy to it.
Yeah.
I think the college thing could look dramatically weird.
Yeah. I know, and they are like the SEC got back.
Your body's growing too, right? You're at a point, if you're 18, 19, you're still growing as guys sometimes.
Yeah, and just who knows from what you have available to you at home. At least the NFL players have all been making some baseline of money. Like they all have blenders at home, right? Or if they don't, they can just get one. That's not necessarily the case in college. All right, this is something I don't think there's really any news about the NFL 17th game, other than it's just something that we haven't talked about. And I know you mentioned to me that people have been asking you about it. And I'll be honest, I had not really thought about it at all.
Well, because it didn't get implemented until the following year, right?
Not will there be a 17th game, not should there be a 17th game, but who are you going to play in your 17th game? Who? Divisional opponent for a third time?
Yeah, you think that's not going to happen, right?
No. But I'm just saying, like, no one's even said, hey, just for the record, we're not doing that.
Well, the schedule at 16, someone asked me, like, who are they going to play with the 17th game? I'm like, what do you mean, who are they? They're just going to play another team. Yeah. Well, he's like, well, you play your division twice. That's 6 games. You play multiple divisions. You play one in your conference, one in the AFC. That's 8 games. You're now at what? That's 14. Then you get a smooth added 2 strength of schedule games, which for the Niners, for example, this year it's the Saints and the Packers, just because you just play the other 2 teams in the NFC beside your division and the other division you're playing, which for them would be the NFC East. So you have all your bases covered.
16 divided by 4 divisions are 4.
The only option I see is do a strength of schedule game with the AFC, or if you're an AFC team with the NFC. I really think that's the only option, right?
Yeah, I mean,
what else could you do?
Well, it has to be AFC, NFC. The question is, do you go strength of schedule, or do you open it up to be a little more, kind
of like a lottery?
Kitschy? Yeah, like do you make a show where you're like, all right, now you wouldn't draw you'd only draw half the teams, right? But you'd have every team on the board, and you would just say, okay, the NFC teams are out; they can't play anyone in the NFC. And anyone who they've already played is out. And now we're just going to pick a name out, and that's the team you play. Because you couldn't go regional, because what if you've already played the Jets and the Giants? You couldn't do that.
I do think one thing that the NFL, if you and I walked into the league office and talked to the strength guy or the schedule guy and Roger Goodell, what they love about strength of schedule games, for the most part, it gives them consistent good matchups every year. Right. And for a long period of time, you create rivalries that way, like Patriots Colts. They played each other every year. Patriots Steelers played each other every year. Now, what if I told you we had got Seattle and Kansas City for the next 4 years, right? Every year. Or Pittsburgh Eagles, just really good matchups of teams consistently finishing, or the Ravens against the Niners every year for the next 4 years. And you could kind of cook the books, right? You could just make sure those 2 teams play.
I guess to counter, my first reaction would just be that does make the most sense. Would you at all be concerned that your best teams already play the best teams. We're expanding the schedule, and we're making, for the best teams, the schedule even harder. Right? The more strength of schedule games you play, just the more discrepancy there is between the difficulty and the schedule for the good teams.
Maybe you should go lottery then. Like, so you get Ravens, Cardinals.
Just get some random.
Texans, Cowboys. Just games that wouldn't have played that given year.
Or is there a way to do something where it's almost like a rotation? Teams that have gone the longest without playing each other end up playing each other in some way. I don't know if you could. I don't know if that would work, but
I haven't read one thing. I will be a little shocked if it's not pretty basic strength of schedule.
Yeah, I will too.
You just play. They just pick another division in the AFC that you're not playing, and you're let's like for the Niners, they're playing the AFC East this year, so you could pick one of the other three AFCs. Let's just say the AFC West, and you just match them up.
Yeah.
You could argue, should it be the opposite for that game? Like the best team plays the worst team or vice versa? But then I think teams would complain, well, why does that team get to play the worst?
Yeah.
And, I don't know.
Yeah. I probably wouldn't do. I mean, you could. Anything's on the table. I probably wouldn't do. I think you're right. I think that's the way it ends up. You add a division, you play that division. One game. Strength of schedule. First place plays first place. Second place second. Third, fourth. But
like if I told you that Niners Chiefs this year, and Eagles Ravens, you just start adding the games. Like the NFL just likes more good games because it's not like Week 17 is all going to be together. You stagger these games throughout the year. That's how they do it, right?
Right.
Like that individual game could be all the good, let's say 7 good games come out of it. They would just throw them periodically throughout the year. Throw one on a Thursday, throw one, And the great part about the NFL is you get consistent curveballs. You never truly know who's going to be a good team because some teams, every year we get worst to first. Every year we get teams that were good have a down year. One key injury at quarterback. All of a sudden the Steelers are out of the playoffs.
Yeah, it would work. I'm just looking at the big schedule. I mean, just trying to think. Like, so if you went NFC West, AFC East, which is what we already have, like you said, and then went AFC West, NFC West, and that means the AFC West would be playing the NFC South and the NFC West. Maybe you even could you do it where you play, like, for example, the AFC East this year plays the NFC West and the AFC West. So could you even always just match it up, like whichever AFC? So if you're the if you're the NFC West, you're the Niners, right? Whichever AFC division your AFC division plays, you also play that division.
You could do that.
I mean, you don't have to, but
because I don't think they even worry that much about travel, right, or location. Like you brought up regionally, I don't think that matters to them at all.
I only thought regionally from like a interleague play type. Could you get some good matchups that you would, Niners Raiders play every year?
One thing you could say is if you don't play your division in the other conference, so if you're the AFC West or the NFC West, and you don't play the opposite of your division in the conference, you automatically play them. Because originally it would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's just natural. Like, right, if you're an Eagles fan and you're like, you get to play the Jets this year, or you're a Rams, get to play the Raiders, like that, we would be more interested in our regions with that.
You could do that where you're saying just every year. You never
automatically
you always rotate through 3 divisions, and then you automatically play your regional counterpart.
One team in that division in a strength of schedule game.
So every 4 years you play the Raiders if you're the Niners. Every 4 years you play Denver. Every 4 years KC. Every 4 years you play the Chargers.
You could do it that way.
I like that.
That would be pretty cool. And you could kind of over time build some rivalries, right?
Yeah.
And just kind of feel like you kind of would hate that conference too.
Right.
You'd be paying a little bit more attention because I think you naturally do.
Yeah.
Right. If you live in New York, what conferences do you pay attention to? The AFC and the NFC East. If you live in California, you're just paying attention to the 2 West Coast divisions. You end up watching a lot of those games. So fuck, I'd love some crossover. That's actually, we figured it out. Just do that.
Took us a little more than 5 minutes, but we did it. All right, Bob Myers, John. Bob Myers was asked by reporters on a conference call about whether or not the Warriors would use a $17.2 million trade exception that they have. And he said, I don't know. Depending on the economics, we have to be smart and pragmatic. I can only look at past history where Joe has always been receptive to spending if it helps us win. We're in a very unique situation now. I have no idea what the future holds as far as parameters. In other words, hey, let me just throw this out there. You're talking to the organization that has spent money like crazy. So you know we're not cheap. But we're going to have to take a breath here to figure out what we're going to do.
I think fans, even if you're a Yankee fan, a Laker fan, a Warriors fan, just any team when you just close your eyes, the Phillies lately, obviously the NFL is unique because every team has money. I do think you need to be prepared because whatever business you work in, right? In our business, it's based a lot off advertising. I'm all off advertising right now. I mean, we got impacted. If you work in a sales job, I'm sure you know, like, God, this guy, people stop picking up your phone call when you go into a pandemic. You know, you read about these companies that had cuts across the board. Why would sports be any different? And I think sometimes we struggle because a lot of fans just view it, oh, it's just a kid's game. They don't look at it like a business. And I think it's going to be pretty eye-opening, especially if some of these salary caps dip a little bit. I'm still a little apprehensive to when I read that the NFL salary cap is going to come down $50 million a squad. Like I'll be shocked if they don't put in some mechanism to at least at minimum maintain. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the NBA, who was already being impacted with television ratings, and they were having issues before the pandemic hit, right?
China. Daryl Morey, remember that?
Yeah, so that they were going to have, like they had been talking about, we might lose 10 to 15 million a team this year. You factor this in, they've kind of been floating. It might come back $30 million. Now, you can always, the great part about running a league, you get to make up the rules.
Right.
So it's like, well, so you're just going to get taxed on that extra 30 million? Not if they don't want to. They could amend whatever they want. But it'll still be Joe Lacob. When's the last time Chase Center had an event, guy? The moment fucking the league get Taylor Swift and the Rolling Stones, like they got cut off too. It's going to impact. I'll be a little shocked if they just keep operating business as normal, won't you?
Yeah.
I would say, I say that for all the teams. Mark Cuban, the Lakers, I mean, any of the quote unquote big spenders that don't hesitate. Just get ready. It's going to impact the players because I think they're going to be, some of these guys will be like, well, no one's willing to pay me. Like, no, you might not.
I think too. The good from specifically a Warriors perspective, they're good enough just to be competitive. Like they're good enough to sell a bunch of tickets without adding anybody. They might not be championship level, but Klay Thompson and Steph and a draft pick and Draymond, and they'll just be good. They can take a breath and go, look, guys, let's especially if that's what the whole league is doing. Now the counter to that would be does the whole league do that? And Joe Lacob goes, this is our chance to strike while everyone else is taking a breath. Maybe, but it just depends. I mean, they built this thing themselves, and they built it themselves under the assumption that they'd be filling it with concert dates to make their money back. So there is just a lot of real money getting thrown around here.
But don't you think it's going to have a large impact on the league?
Yes.
As a whole?
Yes.
Yeah. Baseball, I mean, if the baseball season doesn't happen, it's going to have major ramifications there. But basketball, I was listening to like Windhorse podcast, and he's like, this is still going to be a losing proposition for Orlando. They just need to recoup some of the money. Like they're still going to be way in the red.
Right.
Now you're right. The one thing Joe, who is a market maverick, right? He looks at things, undervalued things. Maybe you go, wait, I can use this trade exception to get a guy that in a typical year I'd be bidding against 10 teams where it's just me and one other team for a $15 million player. It might make sense. But one thing Bob has said, like, listen, he's always listened to me before. If I said this guy was worth it, we did it. They did have, I wouldn't say a bad experience, but they got a lot of credit for the Boogie signing. And if they could do that over, they probably would have signed someone else, right? because he didn't play the majority of the season. Then he did come back, and it didn't totally fit, though he did kind of help in the playoffs. But I think they would probably have picked another player.
Yeah,
I think for the hype that they expected, it was not what they thought.
And part of the hype was it was them. Like, if he had signed with the Bulls, nobody would have been like, the Bulls just got Boogie for that? But it was the Warriors. It just felt like this continuation of they've had Durant taking less money. It just felt like they were gaming the system when the fact was nobody else was no one else.
I don't know if we'd ever know the answer on this one. Do you think if they would have known the pandemic was going to hit? Now, D'Angelo Russell was not a good contract, so they had him on the books. Would they have made the Wiggins contract, who's even worse and makes more money? Or would they have just stayed
If
flat?
they had known the pandemic was going to hit, do they just let Katie go without doing a sign and trade?
Probably, yes.
And you don't do D'Angelo, and then you don't end up with Wiggins, and you just...
But I think what they'd probably say is then we wouldn't have had either player, and we'd just be assetless with a cap diminishing, and we had high-priced players. We don't have any room to sign anybody.
Yeah.
So maybe they'd say, yeah, we have to do that just to attempt to try to win another title. Have one of those two guys, and we think for whatever reason Wiggins is the better fit. But, I mean, guy, they got 4 players that if the cap does come down, they're going to be way over whatever that number is.
I know, but you can't tax you can't tax teams on a diminished cap.
I'm with you, but these things get weird fast.
Like, at least money that's already on your books. Now, any dollar you spend beyond that now you're over, okay, but I don't know.
You do agree, though. I think it's going to get a little weird for everybody. Like whenever we get some tangible, like this is what the numbers are, this is where we're at, and this is where we need to get to. People will be like,
There's going to be some change in the rules on the fly, yeah.
They're not going to have a choice.
Right. Like you said, the beauty is these are not laws written in stone, handed down from God. Like, these are just their own rules, right?
If you had to guess, the contracts that got shelled out in baseball last year, the 330 and the 300 to Manny and Bryce, do these contracts with baseball still get thrown around as consistently these next couple years with the unknown and the amount of money they just lost? Or do you think if you're Mookie Betts, it won't affect you that much?
I think how does it not? I mean, how does it not? Especially if they don't play. How does it not affect these contracts?
I wonder if this has a
$7
major...
million we're talking about here. And here's the other thing.
Is anyone giving Mookie Betts $350 million after a pandemic?
So.
I don't think so either.
Maybe does he sign a 1-year, $40 million contract and just tries to run it back? Now, maybe he could get 4 for $150, and does he take that?
Like a 2-year opt-out or something.
Yeah, well,
Bryce is like, I signed a 10-year, $330, opt-outs every year. So you just get all the sweet shit, and we just hope to God you stay? I love that. That's the best part about baseball contracts. Signed a 9-year, $375 million deals and opt out any month I want throughout the 9 years.
It's like Johnny Cueto's contract.
Yeah, just opt-outs. Just opt-outs. Wait, do we get to opt out too? No, you got to pay me every penny.
No, there are years where you hope I don't opt in. You hope like the Johnny Cueto deal. They probably hoped he didn't pitch well enough to opt out.
I know. You have to have legit leverage as a human being to have opt-out clauses. It's got to be a good feeling.
And here's the other thing. You're making so much money in these baseball contracts, and you're aging. By the time you got that contract, you're probably old. The amount of money you could opt out for, the amount of money that you have locked in is just going to be so big that it's not even worth rolling the dice on the opt-outs.
No. Can you imagine the power you must feel? You're like, I just opted out of $175 million.
So you better know that you have 100. But is it worth doing that for 200? Maybe. But you better know it's coming.
You better know it's coming. That's why agents get fired, guy.
By the way, last thing. We don't even have to do this for 5 minutes. I saw on Monday the preview for a new Russell Crowe movie called Unhinged. I recommend you all watch the trailer for Google or YouTube, the trailer Unhinged. You watch the trailer. I told you to watch it. I could not believe this was a real movie that got made. When I saw it, I thought, this is the most relatable movie premise I think that has ever existed. Basically, a woman and her son are in a car. They honk at Russell Crowe, and she gives him one of these, like, come on! And then honks her horn and speeds around him. He tracks them down in rush hour traffic. He says, I'm sure that was just a courtesy tap-tap, wasn't it? And the little boy's like, Mom, just tell them it was a tap tap. And the mom's like, no, it was not a tap tap. And he spends the rest of the movie hunting them down because she honked at him in traffic and gave him the wave. Can you think of a more basic movie premise than this?
I would say the movie trailer for Taken, while very cheesy, was like, I gotta see this. This on the cheesy scale flies by all the Takens. I mean, flies by the Takens. Like you're like, this is just gonna be like, welcome to Saturday Night Live. You're waiting for this to be a joke. It's not a joke. But by the end of the trailer, because I watched it after you brought it up, actually kind of intrigued. I will definitely rent this movie when it becomes on demand. And in these times it might go straight to on demand. You're right, very relatable. Usually you don't see, like, Liam Neeson was never Russell Crowe or whatever, right?
As a star.
Liam Neeson's pretty famous,
yeah,
but
yeah.
Russell Crowe, I mean, one of the greatest. I mean, Gladiator. I mean, he became a movie star, like on the A-list of stars. You don't typically see him do a movie like this. Maybe just hit rough times. Look like he's put on some pounds. If you would have told me and described this to me and asked who did this, I'd be like, it'd be like an action guy that's fallen on, Liam Hemsworth maybe, but he's too good looking and kind of in his Rock, probably not. But it'd be someone like in that level, not some guy that has Academy Awards, right? Is there just limits of, like, there's just not that many options anymore for these guys?
I guess we have to account for the possibility that this movie is not what it appears to be, that there's some crazy twist we don't know about. But, yeah, maybe it just pays really well.
Yeah, I mean,
or maybe
you get to a point in your
life.
life.
The script and he's like, every human on Earth will be able to identify with it. This is the film everybody wishes they could make.
When you watch the trailer, do you think, I would rent this on demand for $5.99, or I'll wait for it's free?
Free.
You would not rent this?
No. Unless everyone's like, this movie, you don't understand. It's not what it appears. This is a great movie. Like, okay, I can be convinced. Like, fine. Cool. I'm in. But first blush, I consider myself a trailer expert. I can category, would I leave the home for it? Would I pay for it? Would I wait for it? Would I not watch it at all? This is between not watch it at all and watch it for free. And maybe watch it for free just because it's like, let's just play out the scenario that we've all wanted to execute a million times. How would this really go down if I spent my life tracking somebody down who honked at me? But
well, and in the trailer guy, it kind of feels, I don't know if he's killing other people, but he's definitely committing crimes to other people.
Well,
right?
He barrels through a police car in an 18-wheeler.
He slams a dude's head through the counter where they would eat at a diner, who looks to be like her ex-husband or business partner. So he's accumulated a lot of information from the other car, right? I would, pandemic-wise, for sure rent this movie. I also think you need to change your philosophy. I think the movie theater's basically dead. The movie theater might not really exist in the next 5 years. So it's going to be, would you buy the movie at your home for $15.99?
Oh, I think
would
like
you wait Would you wait 3 months for it to be $4.99, or would you wait another 3 months for it to be free?
Yeah,
I think those are going to be the 2020s, the categories.
It's going to be hard initially to transition to, I'm just going to pay for a movie that is a rental. It's not a purchase. Because right now there are a couple. I saw one. You rent it for $19.99. It's gonna.
Yes, I've seen a couple of those.
So that's like to your point. I've
had low moments before and I've done it.
Really? For what movie?
I can't even remember, but it's never worked out well.
So that's going to be one of those things in 5 years that you're all just like, yeah, this is how you rent, and you just hit it. But initially it's going to be like, fuck that, I'm not doing that. But we're all just going to come to the acceptance that that's normal. You're right.
But if I told you whatever the movie of, it doesn't happen as much as it did when we were growing up, but like a movie that everyone would have gone to the theaters for when the theaters are dead, like Saving Private Ryan, or just whatever the movie is. It was like, you got to see this thing.
A Star Wars movie, I would say, is like one that now
for sure.
I'd
say those, and the Robert Downey type movies. But I'm talking about one that would older people, younger people, like everyone would be pretty interested in seeing. I think the market for the $15.99 would be pretty strong in people's homes, don't you?
Yeah, it's gonna be, because at the end you go, this seems crazy to me, but you do the math real quick, and then once it becomes normal to you, it just becomes normal to you, right? Like one day, I would guess this, John. Everyone will have YouTube Premium in 5 years. They'll be like, yeah, $11 for YouTube, no ads, great, right?
Well, I'd say this: it feels crazy. Is it that crazy? You'd go, well, if I'm going to take my wife to the movie, what are we spending? Her ticket, my ticket, that's $25. We both get a couple drinks, some popcorn, and maybe some M&Ms. Boom, we're already $40.
And yeah.
You just do it at your home for $15. You're actually saving money.
That should be Unhinged, the sequel. You go to the movies, it costs you $48, and you get pissed and start killing people. Think about Unhinged. Honestly, there is an endless franchise of Unhinged movies that are out there, right?
Well, I think for sure Unhinged, the insurance call when a teeth cleaning or a injury is not covered, but it's supposed to be covered.
Yes.
And yet you get the bill and it's $2,700 and you thought it was going to be $375 and you go Unhinged and then you search that guy out, but then you realize he's just the messenger. So you use him to go to the CFO and the CEO. You could just take out the whole company.
Right.
You're just like USAA or Blue Shield or whoever. I'm coming for you.
Definitely.
And hell is coming with me.
Unhinged overdraft fees. That'd be that's one.
What would Bezos be like? Hey man, thanks a lot. You credit me more. I appreciate it. Just that'd be a love show, right? A love movie. I just love Amazon. They just credit me.
It's not an Unhinged. No.
It's a love story.
Unhinged, like your DirecTV. You signed up for DirecTV for Sunday Ticket, but now you want to cancel it because the promo time is over, but you're locked in for 2 more years. Unhinged.
Another good one would be like Comcast. You pay a lot for Wi-Fi, and for whatever reason in your house the Wi-Fi never works. And there's a moment when you had like a big proposal due at work that was like you had told your wife this bonus is going to be our next down payment of our home, the home she always wanted. You got a new baby. Everything's depending on you. You feel the weight of the world on your shoulders. And then you have like the deadline. Remember back in the day when Elvis Dumervil, they faxed the contract, but it didn't go through and he became a free agent. Moment like that. It doesn't happen. The deal doesn't go through. You get fired from your job. So you search out everyone that in whatever company that you are getting your internet from that's involved with that internet. And again, you start with the guy you call customer service and you just work your way up through the company.
Yeah. It shows you
and
on
you
a plane
come after everybody.
Like 5 minutes in, you're on a plane to India, right? To a call center.
You're coming for blood.
Actually, this might be the one that for me hits closest to home. After any car, the one they're making is the most Unhinged, the upstairs neighbors. Like, what the fuck are you doing up there? It's 11:30 at night. Unhinged, the upstairs neighbors.
You just look at your friend or your significant other and you go, there is no way humanly possible. We've been sitting here for 3 days. I don't think I've taken as many steps in 3 days as that guy up there or girl has taken in the last hour.
What is this?
Are they training for the Olympics? What could they possibly be doing? Haven't you always been fascinated by walking patterns?
Yes.
Because you just look at you go,
like
am I the
I'm pretty sure
am I the laziest guy alive? Do you sometimes question yourself and go, am I really lazy? Do most people just walk around all day?
Nope.
But it's like, well, he doesn't have 5,000 square feet. Where's he going?
Why
does he just go to the kitchen every 2 minutes?
Well, that I do.
Wouldn't you pay if it was legal just to be like, listen, I'm not looking for nudity or anything. I just want to see what you're doing for like 2 hours, middle of the day. Just I need to be able to figure out, like, am I the weird guy?
Once I know, right? Like, I had some neighbors I couldn't figure out, and eventually I'm like, do they have a portable washing machine? Or, it's like you start coming up with all these possible theories. I still don't know. Maybe they had a washing machine. Maybe they didn't. It created this weird hum. I don't know. I got nothing. No clue. Couldn't figure it out.
Would you say the majority of people, since you've lived where you live, that live above you, feel like walk around their living quarters, definitely their living room, 50 times more than you would? Like at a number that is just outrageous relative to the way you're operating your life.
Yeah, that's what I think, but maybe someone else thinks that about me. I think I walk softly, though. I try to be cognizant.
But to me, it's not even about walking hard or soft. It's like, how are you walking so much in your house? Go for a walk.
I know.
You come to your house, you sit at your desk, sit on your couch, sit on your bed. We don't walk. These are not this isn't like this isn't a state park here.
Well, and you're not picking apples. Were you constantly unloading baskets to the truck and coming back to the bedroom where the apple tree is? I'm with you.
But I'd say that you are not alone, guy.
That's what I'm saying.
This actually could be unhinged.
I think it's
Unhinged. This unhinged would be too short though, because you just walk upstairs and kill him. It would be no tracking.
Well, it'd be like one of those safe room movies, where you're constantly trying to get in.
Do you know what it could? Here's what this could turn into. So you take out the people above you in Unhinged too. Then you go, I want to see if everyone in this place is doing it. So you just start listening, and then everyone's doing it. So you just take out room by room.
I put out an ad
and
on
eventually
Craigslist, like I am the upstairs neighbor extinguisher.
Yeah, and then like whoever the kind of low rate detective kind of gets word because his like kid who's a little more tech savvy goes, Dad, I just look at this thing I found on the internet, and he's like, I don't make what's the internet, what's going on there? And then he sees like 3 desks in like 3 different apartment complexes, all kind of middle floors. You start adding it up, and then you go back to your kid, and he shows you again. You start tracking them down.
But here's what you couldn't have. You couldn't have my current upstairs neighbor in this movie because when she moved in, we went up there and like, hey, just so you're aware. And she's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Here's my number. Text me anytime. She was too cool. It would have to be knock, knock. What do you want? Yeah, I don't care. This is America. Slam.
You ever had any of those?
Not like that. I've had people that have been cool, but then have had no concept that like pumping your bike tires up at 5:30 a.m. makes a lot of noise.
Yeah.
That type of deal. But this is not a podcast for the airing of grievances.
No, I saw a good TikTok video that's like when I wake up before my wife and the guy's in the kitchen, like very quietly pouring some water and like, taking a bite very quietly. He's like, when my wife wakes up before me, and he's just throwing shit around. He's making the coffee. He takes out like a wooden spoon. He's hitting it against the cabinets. And he's like, and I was like, I can relate to that one too. I've always feel I'm so cognizant when I get up before people and I'm in a smaller quarters, even if it's a home, like I feel most people do not think about that. It's like, oh my God.
My dad.
Are we cooking the pig at 6 a.m?
My dad always says that a parent must have invented the bag for chips because it's so loud you can't sneak chips.
That's true for sure.
That a parent definitely, because I know there are many times when I've gotten home at like after a game, it's like 11:30 midnight, and I'm trying to get into the fridge so quietly, and I'm like. And the next day, Alyssa will be like, "What? You were making so much noise in the kitchen last night." I'm like, "I was being quiet. I can't help it that the cheese is in plastic. I can't help it that the crackers are in plastic. Like, what am I supposed to do? Not eat?"
Do you know what you realize? I've been watching a bunch of that. I powered through like 10 Office episodes.
Yeah.
Yesterday.
I did too.
And Seinfeld was just like this too. You don't have to overthink comedy and shit that just people can relate to and will just die laughing on. Right? It's pretty basic. Like that's where Unhinged is kind of onto something. Like everyone can relate to at least the premise, how the thing starts.
Yep.
Then most people would go, wait, you're going to follow this person? You had a job? Kind of looks like he's,
his life
out.
Is probably,
right?
Yeah. Yep.
He's rolling his wedding ring. Like, did she just leave him? Right. Is that her? It wouldn't be her sister because she would have recognized him. Is there like some weird, is that like her sorority sister? To me, there's got to be some connection there. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did she say something to in an office? You should leave the scumbag, and she doesn't even know it. I'm renting the movie.
All right, go watch the trailer. Subscribe and like the video that's on YouTube. And if you're on the podcast, go give us a rating. We haven't asked for that in a while.
Yeah, go do it. Peace.